Hello everyone, and welcome to my continuing series on how to set up and tune drums using the Breakbeats kit from Ludwig. Today we're going to be working on the 13-inch floor tom, and I'm going to be using some of the fundamental tenets, the stereo tuning, to show you how to get this dialed up, reheaded, dialed up, and ready to rock right away. The first thing I usually like to do, just to start you off, is I like to balance the drum before I take the heads off and retune it. I just think it's a tension instrument. You got a tension shell. It's best if you balance the drum and make sure it's where you liked it before you start taking it apart. Now today we're going to start with the bottom head because I'm replacing a stock head, and we're putting on a lovely Evans G1 they sent me to check out some of the 360 bearing edges, so let's give it a go. Alright, now that I've taken off the bottom head, so you didn't have to watch me take off a bottom head, let's get to the next steps we have to get this thing rocking. You'll notice that I put the old head underneath the bearing edge because I don't want to hurt this thing, because I'm going to tune up this top head and make sure she's right before I put that bottom one on. A little stereo tuning tweak. And we are on. Now, if you haven't seen my snare setup videos, I talk a lot about stereo tuning, so check them out because a lot of fundamental tenets of it are there. But we're using two keys. Why? To tension it up evenly, to balance it evenly, and of course, to move super quick. There we go. We're set back and ready to go. So let's go ahead and pop this head on. Now we have an Evans head. No culling needed because no glue seals involved. Let's pop that bad boy on. And one of the most important things, no matter what drum you're putting a head on, is centering of the hoop. Now, of course, you're going to put your lug nuts in. Here we go. Our tension rods are sliding into your lug nuts. I've already pre-greased these with Silk Line. If you haven't seen my video about how to lube your hardware and lube your lugs, homage to Silk Glide, go check it out and you'll understand why this is such an important thing to do. Now that we have all our tension rods in their little lug nut holes, we want to take these things down to figure tight. Now, I'm going to use my drill to make it go a little faster, so if you've seen me use this before, I always check my direction and then guide it with my finger. So you don't want to strip this thing. We're not tuning with it. We're just trying to move quickly, get a little NASCAR action going on, you know. Watch where you're going again. Always guide with your finger. One more shot. Solid. Now, from here, you want to start with two central points here. Once this head is balanced and centered, make sure that everything is nicely in the hoop and nicely, and you want to start with 2 points. Again, this anchors the head in its position so it's not sliding around or leaning left and right when you're tuning this drum to finger tight. We have our first 2 lugs in place. Gently turn that drum. Let's get our second 2 lugs in place. Now, finger tight is different things to a lot of people. To me, it's pretty tight. You want to make sure it's almost like you use drum keys doing it, but you don't want to put the key on too much unless you got to give it a little bump here and there because of an old lug or just something sticking, simply because you want to have the lowest tension possible. When you're starting, it's like a fundamental bass point, and that way you really know where your tones are going and you can kind of guide yourself as you move up. So let's do the hand muting thing and the finger snap thing. If you haven't seen some of my fundamental tools and techniques video, check for tuning drums. Check it out because these are some of them. So I got one that's a little low and one that's surprisingly high. So when I get high, I will use a drum key just so I can really control how much is going down, because at this level, a little is a lot. All right, now that we got a good fundamentals balance going on, I'm going to take my 2 keys and follow a radial pattern of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, except I'm going to do it in pairs so we can move quickly, move up in a balanced fashion. I'm going to use half turns because we're kicking today. Now, just about every time I do a set of turns, I check the tuning. We're checking it out, seeing if we're in balance. Sometimes lugs feel the same, but they ain't the same. And sometimes they don't feel the same, but they're still pretty close in pitch. So you want to check it out. Now, if you listen, You'll notice that these pairs, pretty much your low boys, just give them a little tweak, see where they're at. Let's go at it again. You notice I'm just using little love taps, kind of little love turns, man. It's not a lot when you want to, if you're moving up in a balanced way, everything should move quickly. And now we're really going to be able to cook, because the more balanced you get, the two key technique works. Balanced and rolling, y'all. Now we got this tweaked up pretty tight and pretty quickly done. So I'm gonna get this one more round, one more check, and I'm gonna let this bad boy stretch for a little bit, all right? Let's give it one more good half turn tweaking. And let's let it stretch. All right, now that we let this head stretch for about 10 minutes, we're gonna get it seated. Now on the road, I usually don't have time to let them stretch for more than 10 or 15 minutes. That's why I tweak them up to tabletop tight. Another reason I do that is it allows me to seat the head without creasing or denting the mylar in a funky way. You know, if you push on this head when it's loose, you will end up creasing where the bearing edge meets the head, and it might not have the best connection. Same thing with putting a dent right in the middle of a loose piece of mylar, and then all of a sudden it doesn't tune up quite as balanced as you would like. But when it's nice and tight like this, it's easier to see. So let's check it out. One of the techniques I use is taking the butt of my hands, like right at the palms here, and curling them around the bearing edge so I can get a nice seating impression of the bearing edge and really get that final stretch on. Get that last little bit in there. Make sure this head's going to be ready to play when I tune it up so it doesn't drop mid-show, it doesn't drop mid-studio session. And after doing it all the way around circle again with the palms right there, I grip the edge of that rim and give it a good push down and make that impression. I follow with a little push in the middle with both hands, just kind of a nice spread. Nice one in the middle with both hands. Give it a good spread. And then I grab my mallet on these bottom heads because they're thin and I don't want to dent them. And let's check it out. Mr. Moon Gel right in the middle. Let's give her a ring ding. So I find two lugs that are singing out a little bit. Now I like to use stereo tuning sometimes, even if they ain't right across from each other, just because it helps those lugs move together. You can feel the tension of the lug under your hands and see if one's looser than the other and really balance it up much more easily. And there we have it. Now let's get to tweaking this down. Two keys again in the radial pattern using stereo tuning. Will allow you to just flow right through this one. We're really tight, so I'm going to go ahead and use half turns. Now one of the tendencies, you want to try to use these keys in a balanced position, but they're not always going to be right. Well, that's where your feel comes in and just getting used to it and watching and kind of keeping an eye about where your ends are at. And see these two are totally post? I don't care. It's a half turn and my hands are used to it. Again, we check as we go down. Check our pitch against the top head, see where we are in terms of tuning, because some drums have real tight patterns in their lug nuts and some have really thin patterns. So a little will move a lot, sometimes a lot will move a lot. down again. We're only a half step away. Little stereo tuning. Realize this pair just went a little less than the others. Now I'm going to use a very small radial pattern because we're only going down a half step. We ain't cranking down from tabletop time. Little down, little down, little down. Now you'll notice I did on these last two. You really notice when I get down here close to where I want it, I kind of tweak back up, just like a screw going back in the wall or turning your guitar up versus tuning it down. You tune it down, that lug nut's going to let the tension rod back out. It's just going back on out, man. You tweak it up, not so much so. All right, let's check to see where we are. Boom, boom. We'll tweak up to make sure these come back up to match the others because they went a little low. Let's go back down again. Now, in general, I like to tweak up and then go back down because it just makes for a more balanced head. I found just the experience. Whatever really works for you is what matters most, but I do know that this works quickly for me. Woo! I'm going to tie these up so you can actually hear the tone. Let's try that once again. Sweet. Didn't take long. That bottom head stretched and ready to rock and roll. Check out some of my other tuning tips on my channel, on my Facebook page, and stick around for part 2 when I put the Evans head on the top of this thing and we get a nice warm jazzy sound out of this Questlove floor tom.